All right, it's 4 o'clock. Why don't we go ahead and get started and pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
We have 2 sets of minutes here, February 23rd, May 4th. Rick, could you give me a motion to accept the minutes?
Sure, motion to accept the minutes.
I second that. Any discussions, any concerns, issues with either sets of minutes? All in favor? Aye. So unanimous. Aye. Maura Bashaw is not present. So it's just 2 of us, so it's unanimous. Matt, you want to step us through the business administrator comments, please?
Okay, so my first thing is I'm going to give you an update on some of the other projects from the prior month. And right now, there's nothing moving with electricity rates. In the prior month, we are, just to let everyone know, we're going to seek electricity rates from 5 different companies in November. And we're also going to try to include the towns of Kingston and Newton in our conversation with new rates. The second item is the group net metering. Basically, in prior months, I let you guys know that the town of Kingston is trying to get a project where they're going to put solar on their landfill out on 125. And the only update I have for that is that we met on May 26th. We received 3 proposals to evaluate the project. I've given you copies of the proposals, which are linked in my report here. And our next meeting is going to be on June 8th of 2022. At that point, I expect them to select a vendor. And basically when they select a vendor, it's going to be, the vendor's going to go in and analyze the location, come up with multiple options for the town to go through, which would include which product to purchase, and then a decision could be made or presented to both the school board and the town at that time.
I think if I remember, you had the initial finds that our rates were ultimately going to be, from a first glance, cheaper than what those rates were going to be.
Well, I think we have to go through the process. I'd really like to see what they have for rates.
Sure.
My concern is with this, I'd have to set aside some additional funds in a capital reserve fund, because we'd be buying power from the grid at the full cost. And if the solar panels go down, and one of their consultants said that longest they've seen it down is 3 months, I'd be buying power at full price. And so it would blow my appropriation at that point. So that's my major risk. But in my past experience, I've only seen these projects produce rates that are much higher than what we can buy it on the grid.
Right, that was my question.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
So Matt, do we have on that, do we have another video on that you could send us a link to? That was helpful for me to be able to watch the video of the last meeting.
I can give you a link to that last one. It was literally like 10 or 15 minutes long. And in that video, they just handed out the 3 proposals, and then we left.
Okay, so there's no discussion or debate on anything?
No,
All right, so then the reality is just the 3 proposals.
that's right.
Okay.
All right, so one of the things along with this group net metering is we've been trying to do an analysis of all of our facilities, and I gave you a raw data, a link to the raw data. I just want to kind of step through it really quickly. The top group right here is current year data, and just know that it only goes through March, so it doesn't include April, May, and June. And 2021 includes the full 12 months. Now, if we look at 2021 and just look at let me back up. I broke out the information where by school, square footage by school, and the student count for that school. And I put in the amount of kilowatts used, and then the total price for that electricity. And I also included in a particular building, like if there's a blinking light, it's put into that building. So it's all inclusive for all costs for that building. So if you look at the energy usage per square foot, Bakey School is almost equivalent to the high school. And Memorial is more expensive than the high school. And that makes sense because That also includes Memorial heats their building with heat pumps, okay? If I move off to the right-hand side here, the total cost per square foot for each of the buildings, Bakey's the most expensive, then Memorial's is the second most expensive, then the high school, then the old middle school, and then Swayze Gym. Now, but if we break it down into a cost per pupil standpoint, just for our energy needs, the high school is the most expensive, and that's mainly because the building is underutilized, okay? Now, if you look at the current year for Memorial specifically, you can see Memorial's electricity costs per square foot is slightly less than the current year. It's like 10 cents per square foot. There is a change in the student count, but what I try to do is have the facility staff turn on the boilers to bring up the temperature, because there's an efficiency point for the heat pumps. And what we found out is it costs 12 cents per square foot just to turn on the boilers. But last year, just for the heat pumps alone, was $1.10 per square foot. So basically, just from trying to do this, we lost 2 cents per square foot, and we found out that it's not efficient to turn on the boilers to turn up the heat. Okay. So what
the attempt though?
Yeah, right. So what I'm going to be trying to do with this data is to present more refined information to the school board so that we can make better decisions in how we're utilizing our buildings. Okay. So back to this. Now, one of the other thing, the next one here is improved fiscal reporting. And right now, we shifted our focus to do our year-end report, which is called the DOE 25. I do have an agenda item for that, and I was going to step through and how that's being reported. Okay. Now, if I go down further, now for the fiscal condition of the district, the first part right here where I've given you a report of all the purchase orders through the end of May. I try to make it as current as possible, even though with all the other reports, I'm reporting through April. Okay.
And where is that on the map?
So there's a link. You see the link right here?
Yeah.
So if you click on the link, it brings up the detail. So it has every single purchase order we've issued in the year. Okay. And oops. So this column C is the amount of the purchase order. Column F is the amount paid. What we found is column G is not accurate because it pulls out the data on a different date. Okay, so ignore that column. All right.
So C is the amount that's authorized and F is the amount that was paid?
Yes.
And G is nothing.
Yeah, at this point, I would say G is nothing. I mean, you can see mathematically it works for like row 3. And it also mathematically works for row 4. But because there's a date difference on how the report was run, you're going to find variances.
Yeah, and just you know, like I'm a 2-year-old there. Explain row 3 to me, because if I'm looking at, you know, the amount that was approved was 280.62.
Yes.
Paid amount 277.55. 1806.
That's the 1806 is the amount remaining on the purchase order. Okay. Because a purchase order, think of a purchase order more like as contract compliance. Yep. Okay. And we've only complied partially on that contract.
So one of the things that we also see is at the end of the year in the cleanup, there's a number of outstanding POs that no one's ever going to deliver against anymore. And then you close out the POs, that money comes back and it frees up the encumbrance, and then it ends up in unallocated funds.
Okay.
Yep.
So long as that PO remains open, even if you don't believe anything else is coming, so long as the PO remains open, it's going to show up as an encumbered amount, the difference between what was paid and the open PO.
And I'm trying to work towards not having many encumbrances getting closed at a year end. Okay, so I want to say it's mostly clean right now. Okay, so moving on, the cash balance for the district. Now, this is the book balance is $5,748,048. It's sufficient to run the district if we had no other revenues for 1.9 months, assuming a cash burn rate of $3 million a month. So far, the towns of Kingston and Newton have paid their monthly assessment payments, and actually Newton paid their June payment, so they're ahead. And Fremont School District paid its third quarter bill yesterday. So as of April 30th, 2022, we recorded $31,440,689 of revenue. That doesn't include the use of fund balance as a revenue source. So Rick, the concept here is the use of fund balance is like budgeting a net income loss as a revenue source. Okay. That will take some time to think about it because we're not supposed to show a profit every year. So we're taking the profit from like the prior year, using it in the current year to show a net income loss. All right, so I've linked the revenue report in my report here. And if we include the use of fund balance as a revenue source, we've recorded 97.58% of our budgeted revenues. And I'm still anticipating meeting our gross budgeted revenues by year end. Significant transactions for the month of April are the second quarter tuition invoice for Fremont School District for $943,799, which we received yesterday. Adequate education grant of $1,039,805, and school building aid for $245,516. Other local revenues includes the sale of a truck for $8,000 and receipts for foster students for $8,294, and then the remaining is AP test fees.
So Matt, what do we have still outstanding of revenues you're expecting? You got the last invoice in Fremont.
Yeah, we have one more invoice for Fremont.
That's got to be the biggest one. Is there anything else that's significant left?
Yeah, I was looking at that. Pretty much most everything is there. And so once we record that Fremont one, we should be right there at 100%.
Yeah, the only other thing I really see is other local revenue of 50,000. What's that?
Well, it's a combination of things. So in the current month, I think it was like $20,000, and like
Correct, 19.
Yeah. So of that 19, 8,000 is a truck that we got rid of.
Okay.
Okay, and we can't believe that we got 8,000 for that truck.
Neither can I.
And then it would, the other pieces would be like return of appropriation in prior years. These would all be other numbers that I would be putting in my prior business administrator report. Okay, I can give you more detailed information on that if you want.
No, I mean, clearly the big remaining net number is the Fremont last invoice.
Agreed. All right, moving on to non-health insurance expenditures through April, the end of April. We spent $22,163,939 with encumbrance outstanding of $6,848,274. The remaining appropriation is $1,377,491, or 4.53%. April transactions of interest are $3,546 for a soprano saxophone, special education tuition for $18,753, baseball field repairs, which is the final invoice for $9,220, and student transportation of $93,339. And we'll be speaking about that baseball bill in another agenda item. Okay. Health insurance expenditures through the end of April were $3,292,155 with encumbrances outstanding of $1,043,642. The remaining balance, which includes that the premium holiday, is $592,057, or 12%. If we're looking at the revolving funds, And I want to pull up the revolving funds and put
What
it up.
about the spending? Do you have the unexpended, what your projection is for the year? Last time we talked, it was $800,000 to $100,000.
Yeah, that's on another agenda item.
Okay, it's gonna come up.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm not changing my position on that because really the numbers aren't changing significantly from, month to month when you do the analysis.
So you're saying you're guaranteeing that number?
Can't guarantee numbers at this point that are estimates. Okay. All right. So the trust funds are this way. Okay. And remember, I'm only getting interest income for the funds held by the town's trustees of trust funds on a quarterly basis now. So you'll see that there's no revenue in the month to date
So
there.
just for people watching, 3 of the 5 trust funds are held by the trustees.
Yes.
You hold the other 2.
The-
You hold the revolving fund and the energy fund, right?
No, not the energy fund.
The energy fund is held by trustees also?
That's correct.
Okay, so then they hold 4, and
Right.
you hold the revolving fund.
Yes.
Okay.
And the revolving fund technically is not a trust fund.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just for the viewers, there's a specific statute that specifies which funds are held by the district and which funds are held by the trustees. And if we need to get money from the trustees, we'd have to go to the school board, ask for permission to withdraw it, and they would withdraw it and send us the money. Okay. So the first one is the Special Education Expendable Trust. That's $241,217. It's the same as last month. The next one is the Capital Improvement and Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. That's $273,079, which is the same as last month. The unanticipated educational expenses is $200,228, the same as last month. There's nothing yet for the that energy one that we spoke about because that transfer is made on July 1st.
I was gonna ask, so the 75,000 plus the 250,000 reserves, you anticipate making that posting on July 1?
Yes, because the article says using surplus fund balance as of
Correct.
June 30th.
Okay.
Okay. And then the final one, the revolving fund, we received $11,994. There's 2 components to this. The first one is our rental income from the SLC, and then the rest of it is building rental. I believe we rented this building out to the Boy Scouts, and they paid something like $280 for that.
It's for the Pinewood Derby.
Sorry?
It's for the Pinewood Derby.
Yes. Okay.
Who won?
What's my side of that?
Okay.
That's always important.
I think it came in like 34th. So
Okay.
And then watching the parents go, ugh, when they win because they have to go to the regionals.
that was a district.
That was a district, so okay.
We held the district students.
Okay.
That was good.
Okay. We also have the contingency fund, which is 2.5% of net assessments at $545,012. And so the total reserves right now is $1,507,864. Now, of that amount, it does not reflect the school board authorization to purchase teacher laptops for $50,660.50, student iPads for $6,230, or Chromebooks for $54,518. Those were approved on the April 13th meeting, and while those items have been ordered, we have not been invoiced for them yet.
Question on the contingency. When do you plan on going for the contingency for this year? Also in August, when we come back?
No, I'm going to be going to the school board at the next meeting. To
At the
do that.
22nd, okay.
Yes, okay. And so, Rick, do you want me to explain the contingency fund?
Sure.
Okay, so when you look at the revenue side of the school district's budget, there's the taxpayer component of it where you're paying real estate taxes. I can set aside 2.5% of the total amount of that, what's being taxed to the taxpayers. That is actually a reserve of fund balance. So on a commercial financial statements, that would be like a reserve in your from retained earnings for like lawsuits or treasury stock. It's just another reserve of fund balance. Okay. But it can only be used for emergency purposes. Now, the laws changed. Before it was, you had to go before the budget committee for approval, the school board, Department of Revenue Administration, and the Department of Education. Now it's just a simple vote of the school board with a public hearing.
Have the public hearing and the board of school board.
Yeah, okay. So that number, if it's not voted on by the school district, my interpretation of it is it gets returned back to the taxpayers, okay? And so that's why in June, I try to have it voted on so that I have it reserved at year end for next fiscal year, okay?
So if I remember the numbers, there's a few $1,000s difference from what would be going back to the taxpayers and what would be held for the 2023 school year.
Yeah, so it's going down, okay? Because we returned more money in the prior fiscal year, okay? All right, so that's the school business administrator comments. Now, open items, all I have in here is just your questions. Did you want to go through your questions at all?
We can go through those last if there's time.
Okay,
Most of them have been answered.
all right.
Just so people are aware what he's referencing is we sometimes get questions on the manifests as to what is this check for, what is this check for, and Mr. Angel provides the answers for those working with the team.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is I've been asked to provide a cost estimate of Chase Field or repairs to Chase Field. And the only way I could really deal with it is go back up to the purchase orders and then compare it to the actual invoices. So the original quote was for $22,000. And I provide a link to the actual quote here so you can see the quote itself. And you can see it's $22,000. Now, what happened was we did an additional where I authorize an additional amount so that we can actually shorten the amount of time it takes to get the field up and running. Because you have to understand, we were delayed trying to get the repairs done before winter happened. We weren't able to seed it at that point. So we seeded it in the spring for an additional $2,220. Now, we paid $5,000 with the quote to get them started. We paid $10,000 on the first bill, and I've linked a copy of the first bill here, even though it's a different dollar amount. What was authorized to pay is down here is $10,000. Okay. Then the final bill, which was paid in April, was for $9,220, and there's a copy of that invoice right here. Okay.
Just curious, did we get any responses or bids on this from anyone within Kingston, Newton, or Fremont?
Yeah, we try to go out and get as many people as possible that were qualified to do the work. Not every landscaper is qualified to work on fields, okay? And what the problem was is the person that we selected backed out at the last minute. So we had to go to like the next person in line, and they were able to get a lot of the work done at the last minute, which is why it was delayed. And, you know, they were actually doing work in December. And
As I recall, we had to wait the procedure in order to get this going so that we can make spring season. So it was rushed through at the last meeting, I think in December, in order to get this project going.
I didn't hear the first part of the question, but yeah, the seating we did, we did really try to push it through because we wanted to get it done for the spring, summer.
Yeah, no, I just, whenever there's work, I just think, you know, people within our towns that can do the work, you know, should step up and, you know, put in quotes, you know, I mean, make a little bit of profit to help the district and the town rather than making a huge profit from somebody from outside.
But we would certainly like, from a district perspective, to support local businesses wherever we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just so you know, there's two school board policies that deal with procurement. The first one is the federal one, and that one right there, I can't look at just local, I have to look at everybody, okay?
Oh,
But when I'm using taxpayer dollars, I look at the second one, and that one specifically says, look at local. And we do try to scour as many local vendors as possible. All right. So projection of year-end balance. So I have my spreadsheet. I've kind of quickly gone through it before. I've updated it through the end of April, which is this right here. I'm still in the 800,000 to $1 million, even though I'm coming up with $1.2 million. Okay.
One of the things we should do, Matt, you mentioned, and we didn't really want to go back on the conferences, but if we've got large POs that are out there, we need to understand, is this real and something coming in, or is this no longer something that we're intending?
I usually do that before the end of the fiscal year to try to maximize the amount that gets returned back to taxpayers. But in my personal opinion, I want to have the departments try to issue their purchase orders as soon as possible for the entire year. I want them to encumber like 80 or 90% of the budget so that we can plan for the last 10 or 20%. And then I use the purchase order for contract compliance. So like if we're going to be sending a couple of kids on tuition to some special education collaborative, I want to make sure that we have the money set aside for those people as early as possible. And unfortunately, to Jamie's point, a lot of those end up being large encumbrances that we have to close out at the end of the year, but they're planned at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and that's what we need to understand, because there's two pieces to that. One is if we're never going to execute against that, then we really need to fess up to that, let the vendor know, et cetera. The other is if we are going to execute it, so we don't want to just do a blanket one, because we've locked in at a price on that PO. And with prices going up, if that's something that we do need and we do intend to get, then we just need to go ahead and get it and make sure that we get the delivery before somebody tries to say, well, that PO was, I don't know, issued 6 months ago and those prices are no longer any good. If it's something we really need, we need to make sure that that gets executed.
Yes.
And if it's not, we need to make sure that it's cleaned out.
Now, there's a legal component to these purchase orders as well. So if I went out to go and buy a product or if someone in the school district went out and bought a product without a purchase order, I can turn to that vendor and say, too bad, so sad. I'm not going to pay you. And they're SOL. Okay. That purchase order is a legal document.
Correct.
That they can actually use to enforce against us.
Sure.
Okay. So that's why in a lot of instances, the purchase orders are issued at the beginning of the year and for the whole year.
But my experience, if I'm a vendor and you've got an open PO with me and you don't ever plan on executing against it, I have other customers. And since you're a big customer of mine, I'm not going to go all legal on you, but you need to tell me that. It's not fair to me to keep me locked up in something that you never plan on executing.
Yes. And they're almost all like that. Yeah.
Of what's left, I mean, so at this point, right, we have, what, 1 month left of the fiscal year,
Yes.
right? So do we have a lot of open, is that,
There's a document that's in here.
yeah, I assume that, I mean, so at this point in the year, are those POs that we're probably never intending to get? I didn't know if that was where that question.
And I totally looked
Does-
at that spreadsheet, it's like 1.6 million.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's a big number.
Yeah. And
To Jamie's point, it's worth a scrub.
well, yeah. So what I usually do is I'll try to scrub it down to between 100,000 and like I think last year was 460,000. Okay, so I try to get that down as low as possible.
Yeah, it's just part of the end of the year cleanup. It's only fair to the vendors one way or the other, and it gives us just a snapshot of where our reality is.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what you're doing over the next month? That
Yes.
would, right, okay.
Yeah.
Where's the end of the year, okay,
Really, we do it after the end of school.
okay.
Okay, because
Which is coming up quick.
Well, I know, I know, I was thinking like, geez, we're back at the end of the year again.
Yeah.
It was 10 days,
10 days
Yeah.
left, is that what it is?
10 school days. for
Yeah.
the non-seniors.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? All right, okay, I'm gonna jump into budget adjustments.
Okay,
The first one is special education. We're having services from New Hampshire DHHS for a special education student as outlined in their IEP. And what we're doing is we're transferring $46,251 from other special education line items to another special education line item.
all within the special education.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I believe that this committee has the power to move it. It doesn't have the power to move it out of special education to another line item,
Mhm.
okay?
So could I get a motion to accept this, the switching of funds for the special education?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right. Now, the next two, I'm not gonna ask for approval, because basically the next meeting, I'm gonna have one big giant budget adjustment, because it's gonna go between special education and other line items.
Okay.
Okay, so this one here, I don't even have a source for this one yet, but to fix the pumps that are in the sewer tank that pumps the liquid out to the leach field is $36,820.
So all the pumps, or there's just some old
Two.
pumps?
There's two submersible,
Old
yeah,
pumps.
both pumps. Okay,
They're both the same age, right?
they are, and one has failed.
Yeah.
And so we're really on borrowed time. Okay, the other one is same thing. I'm not asking for permission at this point. To line the sewer lines at Bakey. Now, what it is there's a crack in the sewer line, and this is gonna put PVC liner in the inside of the pipe, and it's gonna cost $59,750. My alternative, if we don't do this, is to jackhammer that line out and replace it. And that would be massive. Okay? And so that's gonna be at the next school board meeting.
Have they already tested that and said, yep, we can do this? This is that new system, right?
Yeah,
And then they believe they can make that work.
yes, yes. And unfortunately, there's only one vendor to speak to your procurement thing. There's no one else that does this.
And they warranty their work.
They said it will last 50 years. I would take that as a warranty.
I wouldn't take it as a warranty until they put it right, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just, it's a lot of money.
All right, we got audited financial statements, and this is for fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. Normally, we try to get these in the fall. There's two components to this. The first one is I wasn't here until after their audit started. But there's another component is all auditors are late right now, and I had to push them to get it done before March 31st. All right. So the financials, I just want to kind of tell you the components of the financial statements, because government financial statements are confusing. Okay. The first one is, do you care about the opinions? I know you asked a question on that.
I mean, so in the end, they're going to render an opinion as to whether or not they found anything that was other than it ought to be, basically. And this time I do see that they've actually provided, here are some observations of where you can strengthen your systems.
Yes.
So we've been asking for that the last two times around. So I was always glad to see they finally responded.
And I was going to jump into that.
Okay.
Okay, so the purpose of their opinion is that the financial statements are conform fairly to generally accepted accounting principles. But what you'll find in the opinion letter that Jamie asked earlier is the opinion doesn't cover all aspects of the financial statements, because there's certain pieces that don't require an audit opinion. Okay, so the next component after the opinion is the management discussion analysis. This is a document that comes from management, and this is where we're required to report certain aspects of the financial statements. And then there's 5 required. There's a 6th one that we can talk about, but we've hit basically the minimum standard for all the different components of the management discussion and analysis. And if you read that management discussion analysis, it should give you a general overview of the financial condition of the district, okay? Just remember, and this is the next part, and this is where it gets confusing, okay? We're getting into the number pages. The first set of number pages, you have to understand there's two sets of number pages, and it represents the same information. One is on a full accrual basis. It includes liabilities that wouldn't be normally found on a fund basis financial statements, like the net liability, the net pension liability, which is the amount that that is our share of the unfunded liability for New Hampshire retirement system is on those financial statements. On the fund basis, it doesn't include bonds payable and certain other post-employment benefits. Okay, so the first set is just full accrual. It makes more sense to investors of the district just to kind of figure out what they're investing in for, like, if they want to buy the bonds of the district. Okay, then is the fund basis financial statements, and this is what I report to the district, report to you on a monthly basis, is on the fund basis. So it's like the first one here is the general fund. That's the left-hand column. The next one, the next major fund would be grant fund. This is all the federal and state grants that we spoke about at the last meeting. And then the non-major governmental funds, those are funds that are so small that they're just not being reported. They're being reported in the aggregate. Then there's a reconciliation between the accrual basis and the fund basis financial statements. And then this is the income statement for that as well. Then we get into another reconciliation.
Just for a pause there. So what the auditors are doing is looking at the different ways of doing these books and saying, we either do or don't see something that is incorrect in what you're accounting for, something that indicates that everything is good and we can follow along with everything, and all the tests that we've done validate that what you're telling us appears from our testing to be accurate, or they're saying our testing is found it to be not accurate and there's a problem. They're not really saying everything's perfect. They're saying from our testing, this is what we found, nothing to indicate there's an issue, so therefore we give a favorable.
Yeah. All right, the last number page is the fiduciary funds, and these are typically student activity funds. Then there's the income statement for the fiduciary funds. Then we jump into the footnotes of the financial statements, and it talks about, these are all required footnotes. And I'm going to scan down to the bottom, because to me, the most important one is their budget versus actual. I don't really care how they presented it. I usually present it in another fashion, but I wasn't able to steer that. Let's see, which is right here. It's on page 32. And the bottom right-hand corner is the $2,359,000 that was returned back to the taxpayers in December.
Page 32 of their report?
Yes, of their report.
Yeah, not the PDF numbers.
Right. And then goes on, these are the required supplemental schedules, like net pension liability, OPEB contributions. I can go in here. Let me kind of give you a scary number. So the unfunded portion of New Hampshire retirement system is $15,413,000. So that if the school district closes tomorrow, the taxpayers owe that money to the state. Okay. All right. So I'm going to skip from the financial statements and go to the management letter. This is the document that Jamie spoke about before. We hadn't gotten this from the auditors in years past. What a management letter is it's supposed to notify the school board and other readers of the financial statements items that we can improve on, and it could be like efficiencies, it could be internal control issues. What they found, or what they're recommending, the first one here is tighten up controls over student activity funds. Basically, they found 2 instances of deposit forms being incomplete. 9 disbursements where the approval was subsequent to the date of the disbursement. 3 transactions where it lacks supporting documentation. So clearly, this is where I need to go in, educate the staff at each of the schools, and tighten up student activity funds. The next one are credit cards. What it found, they selected 40 transactions. 2 of the transactions were found to lack supporting documentation. Sometimes what happens is the invoice comes back and they misplace it. What I make them do is actually write a note that we scan in that they've lost it. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm?
So when, give me an instance when it was received.
Say for example, they went to Home Depot, they bought a bunch of nuts and bolts for some project, and on the way they misplaced the receipt. Okay, we can get statements from Home Depot, but when we can't, I make that person write a statement and sign it as to what the purpose was and that they lost it.
So in the current approval of the P card, I assume the P cards have to approve
Yes.
the transactions before
Yes.
they get paid. So does that transaction automatically get flagged as it doesn't have a receipt?
Yes, it gets flagged.
And who reviews that?
I do.
Okay.
So the next one is payroll documentation. There was a couple instances, I don't know how many there are, where the rates of pay for a special assignment lacked approval by the school board.
Matt, sorry, I apologize. I know I do this all the time. Do you have a P card?
Yeah, we have P cards.
Do you have a P card?
I have a P card, but it's locked in a safe.
Okay. So if you use your P card, who approves your transactions?
My P card transactions are approved by my staff.
We have a double check for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
The auditors would eat us up if we didn't.
Yeah, no.
I have to
This is
ask.
why I wanted this section, because it's important if they're going through and doing all this testing. Even if the testing they determine to be, we can give you a favorable review. If you saw things that we need to strengthen, we just paid you to do all this work. You need to tell us what you saw so we can get better at it.
Yeah, exactly. So to your point, Rick, I have to ask permission to use my own credit card.
It's funny, I do the same thing.
I was thinking the same
I
thing.
was gonna say.
How do I get my husband to do that?
Yeah.
You're the one with the duck boat. I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So that's the management letter. Then there's a third letter called the governance letter. And this basically is a letter from the auditors to the school board as to like the difficulties and problems that they found in auditing, okay, or auditing the financial statements. And what they found was, let's see, when we moved from the old system to the new system, we moved the athletics funds from one fund to another, but we didn't delete out the balance in one fund, okay? The second one was, recording receivables for student activity funds from at year end. I tend not to do this because for me to do it, I have to move money from the general fund. That takes money from the taxpayers. So I kind of let this fly every year, okay? There were no disagreements between the auditors and management. Let's see, we didn't consult any other independent accountants. And then any other audit findings would be noted in the management letter. And then they gave you information about the other post-employment benefits. And then they're also saying that the use of this document is to be used by the school board. So it's restricted, okay? So that's Those are the main,
Well, the bottom line.
Oh, so that's
is
not
favorable.
public? Is that
It's
what's,
favorable.
no, it's public.
what is,
It's a
for the,
favorable
what
one.
it,
Yeah.
what does that statement mean though? It's for the use of, okay, just,
It's for your use and no one else's purpose. As a school board member.
Did you get lost there?
yeah,
Okay.
it's for our use, but no one else's. So
Like-
just shouldn't that,
like,
doesn't that mean that it's
Well, it's
confidential?
public.
It's a public document.
Yeah.
But only the school, it's meant to go to the school board
It's meant
and to be
give
acted
you
on by the
feedback
school
that-
board.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right, okay.
They can't release it to anybody else.
right.
No, you can release it. to other
They-
people.
they can.
They can.
Yeah, you
They can give it to the school board. School board could then post it if it
Well, it's
wants.
already a public
Well,
document
yeah,
now,
say
it's just in a public
yeah,
meeting.
sorry,
Yes,
yeah,
it's
public,
done.
yeah.
Correct.
I saw how you got confused there. I picked up, it wasn't you.
So Matt, we're gonna run out of time. If you just jump down to project management tracking, let us know what you
Yes.
found there.
Okay, so, so project management tracking tool, let me just pull up the price quote. Basically what this is I can track projects across all funds, okay? So, it was really good, it would be really good to have something like this, say for the COVID grants that I was doing, because some of the money was in the general fund, some was in the special revenue fund. And so I can assign individual transactions to a project. It would also make it easier for me to do the, reporting for Chase Field repairs, okay? And what they said for that particular module, it's gonna cost $2,340 to outright purchase it. The annual subscription, the annual maintenance for that is gonna be $1,428. The implementation for this project module is $1,260. So one-time fees would be $5,028, and then annual recurring fees would be $1,428.
Does the 5,000 include the first year's annual recurring?
We paid for the recurring fees for next year already.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm curious of people's thoughts process. It would seem to me that this would be worthwhile for us to be able to say, I did the Chase Field, I did the boiler project, I did whatever it is. And then labor costs, all different costs can be tracked on it. And then we could say, much better, this is my budget for this project. How did I do on that project? Right now, we do it with bubble gum and
Like we did with the
yeah,
reorganization, maybe save hundreds of
staple
thousands of
wire,
dollars.
trying to figure out what it was after the fact in Excel.
Yeah.
So to me, I think this is worth the investment to help, but I'd be curious as to your thoughts.
No, I would agree with that. I'm looking at like a similar idea for my own business where it's kind of bringing all the pieces together and it seems like it's kind of hodgepodge and it's like looking at the dollar value of spending this much money for something and then, well, what's the time saving or what's the information we're gonna gather from it? I can agree that it sounds like a good idea to me.
I agree. I mean, anytime you get information from, get it whittled down to 2 or 1 system. it's too much
Do you need a
money.
motion for us
Also
to recommend
increases
this to the school
transparency.
board? No,
I don't know, do you want a motion from them?
It's up to you.
Yeah, sure.
can I get a motion to recommend to the school board that we proceed with this?
Motion to approve.
Second,
All in favor? Aye. And we've got the next group right behind us, so why don't we make that a wrap? We'll adjourn the meeting and we'll turn it over to the next subcommittee.
Thank you.